Hi, I'm Paige Pradko. Welcome to Therapy for a Better Life. Today I'm answering questions from my subscribers and viewers, and the topic is on exposures. These questions were from a video called 10 Ways to Maximize Exposure Therapy. And it's a very informative video with a lot of information. I'm going to leave a link in the comments section so you can watch it if you've missed it, but it's one of my most informative videos that I've made. This question comes from Charlotte. Charlotte says, "Hi Paige, could you explain what you mean by a mismatch? I understand it to be when you expect a certain reaction to a situation, but it doesn't happen. So you expect to panic, but you don't. I don't understand how this is helpful if you say that the amygdala needs to be activated in order to rewire the brain. Aren't these two outcomes the opposite of one another? And if so, which one should I be aiming to achieve? Thank you very much, Charlotte." Charlotte always asks really great questions. Actually, they're not the opposite from each other, but let me explain a little bit more. A mismatch in exposure therapy is when, what Charlotte basically described, is when we expect something to happen, but it doesn't happen. We want mismatches during exposure therapy. We want our brain to be surprised. Oh, I thought I was going to panic, but I didn't. I actually did it. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that exposure or ERP, but I did. And so every time that happens, that their brain is a little bit surprised, that means you really did a good exposure. Now, exposures are like little experiments. We have to constantly change them up. We want to combine them in different ways, combine different exposures in different ways that we are constantly surprising our brain. And the more that we can kind of play around with these exposures where we are always kind of challenging ourselves for a new experience. Let's say that I'm doing a driving exposure. I might want to drive during the day, drive at night, during the rain, during snow, during sunny days, go different directions, never go the same way twice, just constantly change it up. Maybe sometimes I have people in the car, maybe sometimes I don't. And just changing things up with whatever exposure we're doing, even ERP, OCD exposures. We want to add a lot of variety and create this mismatch where our brain is just a little bit surprised so that we get a better exposure. Now, I have another question. This comes from Sad But True. "Thank you so much for directing me to this video. By watching, I learned how I've been doing my exposures wrong these past few years. I seem to get to a place of comfort driving for a while, and then a bad event happens, like a significant panic attack while driving, and it brings all of progress back to square one. I was taught to say positive affirmations during driving, trying very hard to focus on the present moment, like my breathing or sounds, scents, feeling the steering wheel. But from your videos, that turns out to be a bad idea. That's not all a bad idea. Should I be doing anything specific while challenging driving? Any information would be so helpful. Thank you very much for these videos and taking the time to do this. It is giving me a positive view again on my exposures, since they haven't worked the past few years since my initial big panic attack driving, which caused this panic phobia." This is really, there's a lot in this question, but I know that a lot of people with driving phobia can relate to this, or with agoraphobia that are trying to kind of, widen their area that they can feel safe in. So first of all, she talks about this bad event happening. She started her exposures and then she had a panic attack. I stress to all of my clients that there really is no exposure that I would say is a bad exposure. I want you to expect to have what Sad But True calls a bad exposure. I want you to expect it, that we're going to be going along exposures. We're going to have some really good exposures. We're going to be proud of ourselves. And then out of the blue, it seems like we could have really high anxiety, panic what Sad But True calls a bad exposure. But it is all part of the process. Now, even in our research, we have shown that bad exposures don't set us back. What's happening in the brain is that the old neural pathway that fear was associated, in this case with driving, that old neural pathway, the fear neural pathway, is still there. Every time we do an exposure, we're creating new neural pathways. Kind of think of it as over top, like an overpass. But the old one is still there. It doesn't go away. And so what happens is that occasionally our brain can jump on that old neural pathway and we can have an anxiety reaction. Even if we've made tremendous progress, it doesn't mean that we're back to square one. It means the next time you do the exposure, you're probably going to be back right on the good neural pathway. So keep up doing the exposures. And I have everybody that I'm doing exposures with expect. We're going to expect there to be a bad exposure every once in a while. That's just part of it. And it doesn't set you back. You just keep on going. Now, the other part is Sad But True talks about that they were taught to say positive affirmations. I don't do this because the positive affirmations anything that we do to try to reduce our anxiety can actually reinforce the anxiety. It's giving our brain the message that we can't handle anxiety, and it reinforces it. And so we also don't want anything to kind of calm down our experience of the exposure. I want my people that are doing driving exposures to be fully aware that they're driving. Sometimes when people are driving over a bridge, they try to trick themselves by, counting or singing or praying or something in their head where they're not fully aware that they're driving over a bridge. That negates the whole exposure. We have to be fully aware that we're driving over the bridge. Let our brain do the work of the exposure. Let our brain deal with the anxiety. It will calm down. And so these were really great questions. I hope that you learned a few new things from these questions. And I would love it if you liked the video and subscribed or left me a comment or question. You never know, you might be someone that has chosen to cover one of your questions in one of these videos. So thanks so much, and until next time, I will see you in session. Take care. Bye-bye.